any of them, and I can change the intensity, but more importantly I can change the emitting shape, and right now they're a single point in space. That's not very realistic. A much better shape would be sphere. You can also choose line, etc. So we'll go sphere, and then click and drag on this little spinner, and you can see all my lights changing there. So that's a good shape for them. So they will give nice diffuse light. So I'm going to go here, move them up, go here, and re-render. So that's looking better. It's kind of blue, and so we can change that in the exposure settings. You can give it a color balance. You can change that in post-processing, or we can probably warm it up by looking at our materials. I'm going to change this back to perspective so I can orbit more freely. I'm going to go back to my materials, make sure that this is actually assigned to this wall, because I noticed the wall is kind of acting funny. There's something going on with my, there we go. Sometimes you have to zoom out. Yep, it was assigned, so that's good. It may be some other preference we have to explore, but I was noticing it was rendering out pretty dark. I might just real quick rotate it. Oops, not like that. I'm going to undo that, turn on my angle snaps up there. Because I'm wondering if it's, because it's not a Max native piece of geometry, I wonder if there's some glitch where it thinks that that's the back, and I wonder if it's the back face culling thing going on again, so I'll just move it there. It doesn't have to be exact. So let's see if that renders out better. But let's also make some other changes. Let's go here to the materials again, and let's say materials, mental ray, arc and design, double click this and choose glossy varnished, well, satin varnished wood. And so that gives us a ton of stuff. So let's undo that and move it over here. Let's just delete this, delete all of these, because it got so messy there that I'd have to move all these nodes. I'm going to drag a box around all of them. There we go. Delete, if you just hit the delete key. So I'm going to say materials, mental ray, arc and design, move this well away over here so we don't get it all messy. Double click, satin varnished wood. There we go, much cleaner. There's other ways to do that too, but that's the way that I tend to do it. So I just dragged it over to our floor. So let's zoom in here. And I'm not seeing the material, so let's make sure we're in realistic with maps. And let's go back to this. And if you right click here, you can see it says show realistic in viewport, so that's good that that's checked. It's just going to take a little while for it to, might have to click on and off. There we go. Okay, so our units are off, I think. It came in as a tiny lamp, and so you can make sure that your units in Rhino match your units in Max with units set up. And so probably my feet got imported as inches or vice versa. I'm not really sure which. Default units feet. I think I'm working in inches in Rhino. So again, something to be careful of. But for now, I'm just going to fix it by remapping this texture. So I'm going to select it. I'm going to go up here to the Modify tab. This is the default tab, but if you go to the Modify tab, it'll say Object 00002, and you can apply all these modifiers. Some of you may have used Max before, but at the bottom is UVWXform or Transform. I'm going to go to that, and so that's just for this surface, and what it lets us do is retile our surface. So we actually want a higher number, so let's try 20 in that direction, 20 in the other. Okay, that's too small, so 10, 10. So let's zoom in here. It's not the most appealing looking wood floor. 20 might have been okay. So That's looking okay. Maybe even a little smaller actually. 25, 25, 25. Just hitting tab to move from field to field. So I'm going to hit this Z, or I could go back to my camera. Getting some viewport glitches here, I noticed that. Sometimes when you work with non-native max geometry, you can get sort of a glitchy viewport. Sometimes you can go to materials without maps and start to get rid of those glitches if you just have to. Sometimes restarting max actually helps. Sometimes just going back and forth between settings will actually help. And so you notice we now are seeing our map again, or I mean our hood again. So I'm just clicking up here and changing, swapping out. So yeah, I had to click away from the viewport, and now suddenly we can see what it actually looks like. So the max viewport is not perfect. So let's say render. There we go. Another thing you can do, I'm going to cancel this rendering. Close. The cancel dialog was on my other screen. Is you can hit 8 and you can do a little render preview. And then you can actually change this value real time. And you can change various other things. Some of you might be more familiar with photographic, and so you can do that. You can also add, like I said, a daylight system here under Systems and Daylight. So let's do that. It says, do you want to add an environment map? Well, yeah, that's fine. What it'll do is add a sky, so that'll be invisible to us because we aren't looking out that side of it. But so I just clicked and drag it. It says, do you want to add an environment map? Yes. Then there's my sun. So now let's set our exposure back to something. Well, 15 probably works, but let's say render now. So basically we added a sun, and so we're actually getting direct sunlight into the room. And so you can see it's way brighter now. So those are some of the settings. Hopefully that's useful, and it's not too complicated, hopefully. But yeah, you can start to see our environment map is actually being reflected in the metal because we have a blue sky. But it's starting to look pretty good. It would take some more tweaking to get it looking really good. I don't really like the floor texture here. You could swap out your own texture. You could use some Revit textures. They're actually accessible here. Let's cancel this render. Well, let's let it just finish. Finish, finish, finish. Okay, you can right-click here and say Materials, Autodesk Materials, and all the Revit materials, if you've used Revit, are actually available here. Wood, all that wood. You can say flooring, wood, American cherry, and so we could actually drag this over to our floor. Right-click and say Show Realistic in Viewport. So we could do a real quick render. So that's a slightly different looking wood, and it looks like maybe the ceiling is off because I see a streak right there. But anyway, hopefully that's a good introduction. Rewind this as many times as you need. I went kind of fast because I wanted to cover a lot, and I figure you can always rewind and even screenshot or pause. So good luck, and I'll look forward to your final assignments.